Welcome back to the official Colorado Sports Hall of Fame podcast. I'm Dave Plati.
And I'm Jim Saccomano, and we are your co-hosts with 88 years of experience working in Colorado sports. Myself with the Denver Broncos and Dave with the CU Buffaloes, and both of us at one time with the Denver Bears, among our many other side experiences.
We're continuing to reveal our 150 significant moments, including an eventual ranking of the top 50 in state of Colorado sports history as we head into the state's 150th birthday this August 1st. That's the date in 1876 that Colorado was admitted to the Union as a 38th state. Little history lesson for y'all. A select committee of veterans with 350 combined years of experience covering or working in sports in the state are selecting these moments that will count down at the rate of 5 per week and then daily for the top 10 come the end of July.
We've already covered numbers 106 through 150 in our last 9 podcasts. So this week, we are revealing numbers 105, 101 to 105. As we count down, all are being archived in the Colorado Sports Hall of Fame website, along with all our podcasts. Go to coloradosports.org, click on the menu bar, and then top 150 moments or podcasts.
But first, before we get to the countdown, we'd like to revisit other moments in Colorado sports history that aren't in our top 150 in or around the date that we're doing our podcast. So today being March 9th, we kind of picked some dates in and around this date and try to make memories out of them for you as well. We've now got over 1,960 of these moments identified, all chronologically signifying their importance at the time. We are remembering moments that had a significant impact on the state sports scene. For example,
on March 9th, 1968, Adams State College won the state's first non-skiing national championship, running away from over 70 schools competing for the NAIA wrestling title in Alamosa. The Indians amassed 106 points, outdistancing runner-up Nebraska Omaha's 77. Adams was the runner-up in 67, losing by 11 points to Lock Haven State, and then came back in 69 to beat UNO again, 98-84. UNO then edged ASC 86-58 to win in 1970. Adams State went on to win in 72, 73, 75, 76, 80, and 1990.
Quite a run. On March 11, 2006, the McClave High School girls basketball team won its third straight 1A state title with a 57-43 win over Haxton, also setting the state record for boys or girls with its 75th win in a row. Senior center Mallory Klein was named the tournament MVP, scoring 23 points with 13 rebounds in the title game. The win bested the 74-game run by the Denver Matchbuff girls during the 1980 through 1983 seasons. The streak reached 78 games and came to an end on December 6th that year in a 51-43 loss to Los Animas, a 2A school, so they lost to a school ranked ahead of them in the classes. Now, if you're wondering where McClave is, it's about 15 miles west of Lamar. And didn't my co-host, Jim, did you go to Matchbuff?
No, I didn't. I went to Mount Carmel. Matchbuff was one of our rivals at the time, the Buffs.
Ah, there you go.
Now, on March 10th, 2012, Josh Adams scored 19 points, the last two coming as time expired in overtime on an acrobatic tip-in to give Chaparral a 69-67 win over Arapahoe in the boys' 5A state title game in Boulder. After Arapahoe tied the game with 11
we have to
come again?
Excuse me. Sorry.
After Arapahoe tied the game with 11 seconds remaining, Chaparral rushed up court. Corey Calvert's three-point try bounced off the rim to the left, where Adams came in and slapped at the ball, banking it in from underneath for the winning basket.
Now, it's kind of hard to explain that in writing. That highlight is on YouTube. If you call up that highlight, it is probably one of the most amazing tip-ins you will see on any level of basketball. Trust me.
Yeah.
Now let's go back to March 9th, 2002. Colorado Avalanche center Joe Sakic played in his 1,000th NHL game, just the 34th player at the time to do so. He had a goal and assist in the Avs 4-3 win over the Los Angeles Kings at Pepsi Center. He would go on to play in 3,878 regular season games and another 82 in the playoffs before retiring after the 2008-9 season at the age of 39, for which his career he scored 625 goals with 1,016 assists for 1,641 points. It was the ninth most at the time of his retirement, and it still ranks 11th in NHL history. Okay, we've covered some previous moments, so now, as Casey Kasem used to say on American Top 40, on with the countdown.
One of the greatest moments in Colorado sports history, number 105.
On May 24th, 1959, the driving force behind Grand Junction landing the Division I JUCO World Series was Sam Simplicio, who settled there after his professional playing days. The inaugural event the year before was held in Miami, but the former major leaguers sold the Baseball Congress on relocating the tournament to Grand Junction in 1959, where it has been held ever since and played on the field that has been named in his honor. Paris, Texas Junior College won the first one held in Grand Junction, besting Northeastern Oklahoma in the title game 14-4. I've been to that many, many times, and it's a great event.
One of the greatest moments in Colorado sports history, number 104.
On October 5th, 1976, hockey was back, but in the NHL for the first time ever, the Kansas City Scouts had relocated to Denver as the Colorado Rockies. They won their first game, defeating the Toronto Maple Leafs 4-2, before a sparse crowd of 7,359 at McNichols Sports Arena. Rookie Larry Skinner scored the first Colorado goal, which was assisted by Chuck Arneson and Wilf Paymont, who had 2 goals and 2 assists, with the Rockies goalies combining to stop 39 of 41 shots.
One of the greatest moments in Colorado sports history, number 103.
On April 10th, 2004, the Denver Pioneers won their 6th NCAA hockey title, their first 35 years, with a 1-0 win over the University of Maine in Boston. Gabe Gauthier took a pass from Connor James and scored a power play for the game's only goal at the 12:26 mark of the first period. Adam Burkhole stopped 24 Black Bears shots on goal to earn the shutout, including 2 in the final 90 seconds when Maine had a rare 9-on-6 or 6-on-3 man advantage. By the way, I think the Maine Black Bears, that's one of the great nicknames in college sports.
One of the greatest moments in Colorado sports history, number 102.
Now, not every moment involves somebody from the state. Sometimes it's an event. And in this case, on September 19th, 1959, the U.S. Amateur was held for the first time in the state, with 19-year-old Ohio State University junior Jack Nicklaus emerging as the winner on the Broadmoor East Course, defeating Charlie Coe 1-up. It was the first USGA championship of his career.
One of the greatest moments in Colorado sports history, number 101.
This one's kind of near and dear to my heart. On November 29th, 1954, after weeks of speculation and negotiation, Bob Howsam purchased the defunct Kansas City franchise for $75,000 that elevated Denver into the American Association and AAA baseball, simultaneously with the New York Yankees remaining the parent club of the franchise with its move to Denver. The banner headline of the Denver Post sports page screamed in all caps, which I was fortunate enough to see because Frank Haraway, our beat man, the legendary Denver Post writer in the Colorado Sports Hall of Fame, showed me Denver gets AAA, and you cannot imagine the size of the type in that. Denver gets AAA was all it said. It was huge, as big as World War II ending. At this time, we want to welcome back for a second time with us the former business manager of the Denver Bears, Bob Burris, the son of 1990 Colorado Sports Hall of Fame inductee, Jim Burris. Welcome, Bob.
Well, thanks, Jim. Good to be with you too, Dave. And I know Tim Simmons is in the background, so good to be with all of you again.
That announcement in 1954 was about as important as could be to the city at the time. and really triggered several things that happened over the next 30 years. Agree, Bob?
Oh, definitely, Jim. And let it not be forgotten that part of the hoopla that probably doesn't get mentioned a lot is the fact that not only did the Denver Bears become a AAA entity, but they were joining one of the greatest names really in all of baseball at the time, the American Association. And the association had been around for, let's see, since 1901 when Tom Hickey started it. But, players like Mays and Mantle and and Williams were all came from there. But that was also part of, in my opinion, part of the huge announcement.
I went back and looked at the Denver Bears roster in '55, which was the first year they played, obviously, and the names that dotted that roster: Tony Kubek, Bobby Richardson, Don Larson, Ryan Doran, Whitey Herzog, among many, and of course Marv Thornberry, who never played much for the Yankees at its position because it never really opened up in the big leagues, but he bounced around the majors for a few whiles. So when you really look at the names that move brought to Denver, that really escalated things as well.
Well, no doubt, David, you're referring to the Yankee connection there. That, if I'm not mistaken, when Hausum bought the Kansas City Blues, they were a Yankee, the AAA farm club of the Yankees. So that immediately also gave a lot of attention to the Bears becoming affiliated with the Yankees. And as you just mentioned, the players, just some of the players you just mentioned that we got to see. I don't know if you knew this or not, but Hausum immediately changed the uniforms of the Bears to put a pinstripe through the which the Yankee pinstripe on the uniform, and he went to a more traditional Denver D. But from the very beginning, you had the Yankees and you had AAA baseball, you had the American Association. So it was a big time. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, my dad told me, because my dad was once working for the American Association when we moved to Denver, but he said that there was a baseball week was designated, if I'm not mistaken, and it was a lot of hoopla, that's for sure.
I think he kept the pinstripes through 1981, correct?
We had the pinstripes for as long as we were there, Dave, and I think our last year was 84.
Well, actually, the year I worked there, they weren't. It was the '82 year, and the pinstripes were gone.
Oh, maybe because we went to that's because we were affiliated with the Rangers. You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
But the pinstripes were iconic. It was great. I was so honored, really, to be a part of the Bears when they wore the pinstripes, and then the Old English D. The first run in the American Association was short, 7 seasons. The league disbanded when the majors expanded in Minneapolis, Houston, added the LA Angels and the Mets to New York. The association lost 3 cities before folding, but Denver and Indianapolis found what would be a temporary home in the Pacific Coast League for 6 years. At the same time, the proposed Continental League came along. You know all about that, Bob.
Well, I do, and I think that was Branch Rickey's idea, Jim, if I'm not mistaken. And Bob Hausum, of course, owning the Denver Bears at the time, was huge in the foreplay of that, because Denver was going to be one of those teams. In fact, that's how the South Stands came to be at the old Bears Stadium / Mile High Stadium, was that they had to increase the stadium capacity for the Continental League. And of course, that never did happen. But that's also the reason that Mr. Hausum had to sell to Jerry Phipps at one point, because the Continental League didn't happen, and therefore that was a huge expenditure of the South Stands, and one that I don't think Mr. Hausum could pay.
No. Can you imagine, though, Bob, somebody buying a ticket in the right field stands, row 50? I mean, really crazy.
No, no, I can't. But Jim, there were a few years with the Broncos too that there weren't very many people in the South Stands as well.
You ain't just a woofing, as old.
Would that have been the first major expansion of the stadium? Because I know it was built in 1948 and it debuted in August of that year, so it was split between
that was
Merchants
It
Park
was.
and Bear Stadium.
It was.
Yeah.
And then, Jim, didn't we extend the, I guess they made a third level, but it only went from, if I'm not mistaken, the right field foul line to basically just around home plate.
Exactly correct, Bob. And the stadium seated 50 at that time. And then eventually the bond issue passed and they went to 76. But that's right, Bob. That's very, very little known. And you're one of the few guys who does remember it.
I remember it, Jim, because one of my jobs was sweeping the stadium. So I remember sweeping that area.
You did it all.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of stories there. Yeah.
One of our previous moments was talking about the Phipps brothers saving the Broncos from moving to Atlanta, being purchased by the Cox Corporation. That was in 1964. And at the same time, they bought the Denver Bears. Now, your father had been president of the American Association for a time before it folded, right? And then how did he get involved with the Bears and then with the Broncos?
Yes. Jim was the president of the American Association, and in 1963, either baseball expansion or relocation of franchises caused the American Association to only have 6 teams in 1962. And then 63, there was more of that going on, and they just couldn't, field enough teams. So Jim was out of the presidency of the American Association for a year, and that's when he went to work for Commissioner Ford Frick as a special assistant to him. And then the Texas League offered to Jim an opportunity to run the Texas League and be its president. He did that for a year. And then when the Phipps family, became owners of the Bears or whatever, they knew of Jim earlier because he had lived there, but they hired him to come back and run the Bears. So my family never had to move. My four sisters and brother, we never had to move. My dad operated the Texas League from San Antonio.
That's pretty cool, Bob. In our project, the first 100 years were mostly dominated by the Bears, minor league teams in Colorado Springs and Pueblo, the colleges and high schools, until the pro teams came along. First the Broncos, then the Denver Rockets and the ABA in the 60s. 3 decades before the Rockies and Avalanche, the Denver Bears really had their place in the state's sports history from nearly the beginning. They were really an iconic franchise. You have to believe that's a legacy, even before your family became involved, and then, of course, after.
Well, yes, Jim. And as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, the Denver Bears was the only professional franchise at one time in Denver before any of the others came around. And of course, after that happened, the secret was kind of out, and, everybody wanted to be in Denver at that point in time. But I'm thrilled that we're still talking about Denver Bears baseball and the great memories that we have. But I wanted to ask you guys, you mentioned Sam Supplizio in your earlier mention of Grand Junction, Jim. Do you remember my dad hiring Sam to play for the Denver Bears?
Yeah, actually, Sam played the last couple of games of the season, the last series, which they ended, by the way, in Grand Junction. The Bears played in Grand Junction. And Sam Supplizio played for the Bears. I remember that. It was great. It was fantastic. I was a high school kid at the time listening on radio, but that was an amazing, wonderful thing that your dad did.
Well, he had the latitude to do some of those things, but Supplizio also hit a home run in one of those 2 games, which further made Jim look good.
Yeah, I had forgotten that. So great, so classic.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you had a chance to go see those games in Grand Junction, because they were great.
They were tremendous.
Yeah. Before we go on, Dave, you and I talked yesterday about another ball player that I did look up that played in Denver that doesn't get a lot of mention. I know Jim will remember. Norm Seaburn.
Oh, great player.
Remember that name, Jim?
Yes, great AAA player.
Yeah, but he was overshadowed by Marvelous Marvin Throneberry and Kubek and Richardson and McDougal. But he had 42 doubles one year. But again, none of those guys could go anywhere because the Yankees were so loaded up there with the big club. And we had the great fortune of seeing some people play, like Ryan Duran's another one we didn't talk about.
Well, a couple more, John Blanchard and the manager,
John Blanchard,
Ralph
you bet.
House, for heaven's sakes.
And when you mention how, Jim, you can't, that gives you down the managerial area. And you had Andy Cohen, Billy Martin, Vern Rapp, who managed the Cardinals, Charlie Metro, who managed the Cubs, Felipe Alou. So there was a lot of really big names that came through Denver with the Bears at that point in time. But not only that, for many, many years, I don't think you could watch a Major League Baseball game, at least in our times, guys, that you didn't see a player on one of the two teams that had not played in Denver.
Remember when Jim Burris goes to Minnesota and he says they just fired the manager? He wants Billy Martin as the manager. And they said, you're crazy, Jim, but you want him, you got him. And that's one of the great managers, well, maybe the best manager ever, really. And that was a great moment for the Bears.
Yeah, I think so too, Jim. Actually, what Calvin Griffith said was, if you're so smart, Jim Burris, who do you want to manage the team? And my dad said, your third base coach, Billy Martin. And Calvin astutely said, Billy can't manage himself. How can I possibly put him in front, manage 25 kids who are 20 years old? And he'll never come. But the next thing you knew, Billy Martin was in Denver.
Yeah. I remember, the team had a winning record under Billy, but they still finished badly out of first place. However, I remember that without great speed, they stole home 7 times. And that was a Billy Martin. That was Billy Martin all over.
It was, Jim, and that's really where Billy ball started, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't Oakland; it started right there in Denver, where you guys are.
Amazing.
Actually, they rallied to finish one game above 500, and I think you told me a story about the last weekend at Indianapolis once, Bob.
I did. We were ready to. I think we had one game left in Indianapolis, and we started 9-22, I think, at the start of that season. But getting to 500 is a major plateau for any team.
Mm-hmm.
And Martin called my dad and said, Jim, our guys have played so hard for me, and getting to 500 is a big thing for us and them. Would you mind if throwing some money in that I could throw a party for them? So my dad said, sure, Billy, that's good. Well, Martin failed to tell Jim Burris that the party was going to be before the game and not after the game.
Oh my God.
I don't know if you guys knew that or not,
no,
but I think we won with 9 drunk guys out there in the field, and we still won and finished at 500.
There was one person. There was an interim manager for one game before Billy took over. Anybody remember who that was?
No.
Carroll Hardy.
Really? How about that?
Who was it, Jim?
Carroll Hardy.
Yeah. Well, Carroll was a great friend of my dad, so that doesn't surprise me. And another great Colorado name, CU Buff, and played 2 major league sports, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Going back to Marv Throneberry, you'll never guess where his name showed up some 35 years later. Any idea?
Well, I would say it was the Miller Lite commercials.
No.
Okay, but he was on there.
Yes, but for some reason, it was either in the second or third Naked Gun movie where when they listed credits, they would make a crazy credit like every 20 or so down, and they gave one to Marvelous Marv Throneberry.
Unbelievable.
I forget what it was on the left side saying what it was, but if you ever looked at the credits for the Naked Gun movies, they're hilarious. So little memory toward Marv, I guess. But Bob, you told me you have a most interesting collection of old papers and artifacts from the American Association. And if you want to enlighten us, and there's a Tommy Lasorda story you told me.
There is a couple of those. When Jim Burris, my dad, was president of the association and it folded, for whatever reason, all those files of every press release, every letter, every piece of correspondence from the beginning of the league back in 1901. I have, and the only reason I have it is because when the league folded, nobody ever did anything with those files and filing cabinets, and I just kept them, in our garage, and I just, wherever I moved, I just kind of took them with us, and so I have some amazing, probably pieces that would be interesting. But I think, Dave, I also told you that there was a file cabinet that contains some of these documents, and it was a file cabinet that my father had said that my brother and my sisters could never look into. Of course, that meant we would look into it, of course. And it was all full of player ejection letters and reports. And the beauty of that's in air quotes, is that when a manager or player is ejected from a game, both the umpire and the player or manager must write a report as they saw it happen, and the exact wording that everything was said. So at a very early age, my dad kept us away from that because we learned a brand new language that was out there. And I still have all those as well. And those are, if you guys ever get to Kansas City, we need to go through all those together.
Bob, those ought to go to Cooperstown.
They probably should be, Jim, and I probably should do that. But they are so funny, and it's by people like Danny Ozark, who was a great manager in the league. There's one from Howe, Gene Mock. It just, the history of the American Association goes way, way back, and there's some very, very great names in there. And at one time or another, most ball players do get ejected or whatever, and they have to write that report. So that was kind of fun. So back to Lasorda, though. Lasorda, who did pitch for the Bears, I think, for 1 year. Dave, is that correct?
Yep.
I happened to see him in Surprise, Arizona, 7 or 8 years ago, and I asked him politely, I said, would the name Jim Burris mean anything to you? And he said, why? And I said, well, I'm his son. And he said, well, your old man fined me. And I said, okay. I said, it doesn't surprise me. He says, how much? He said, $10. And I said, what was it for, Mr. Lasorda? He said, oh, probably fighting. But and then he said, great, great baseball man your dad was. So that made me feel real good too. So,
Bob, remind us, what are you doing these days?
What I'm doing these days is I'm pretty much retired, Jim. I got a great life here in Kansas City. I go to a lot of Kansas City Royals games, and I do a little bit of public speaking around, and not much of a whole lot much of anything really.
Well, Bob, we want to thank you for joining us, and we hope you'll do it again sometime.
Well, thanks, Jim. And Dave, and always good to say hi to Tim as well.
Well, we're not going to forget the Bears in our countdown. There'll be a couple more coming up, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
We know one that's going to be in the top 20, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah. Well, I think I know which one you're talking about.
Jim Cox. That's all we'll tease you with.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, everyone, we hope you're enjoying our podcast. Keep spreading the word. We want to thank our sponsors, Pasta J's of Boulder, 10th and Pearl. They're actually closed for the next 2 weeks while they're doing some remodeling, so go there after March 14th. And the Colorado Collegiate Chronicle, published by one and only Tim Simmons, our executive producer, who's another PR veteran man in the state that provides an in-depth look at college sports in and around Colorado. And the voice of the Buffaloes, Mark Johnson, for introducing each moment's number. Yes, he's our Don Pardo.
That's a wrap on our 16th podcast. Tune in next week for the next reveal of the state's top 150 moments. We hope you're enjoying our reminiscing with our Colorado Sports Hall of Fame guests, as well as our trips down memory lane in the state's sports history. A reminder that the Hall offers tours of its museum, as well as Empower Field at Mile High Stadium, and that the class for 2026 will be inducted on April 16th at the Hilton City Center in downtown Denver.